Welcome to Bootcamp. 9 weeks to make sure that you are completely prepared for your Spanish speaking exam. 1 video per week and a live masterclass the week before your exams. That's literally less than 30 minutes per week to ensure that you get the best grade possible, which seems like a no-brainer to me. Today's video is a run-through of everything you need to know. And the best bit is, I'm not actually even asking you to actively do anything in this video. You just need to sit back, listen carefully, and you can still feel smug that you've done some useful preparation for your speaking exam. Don't forget to share this with your classmates so that they can benefit too. You're going to leave this video knowing everything you need to know about what will happen during the exam and how you should be preparing. We're going to cover reading aloud, role play, picture description, conversation, and my top revision tips. Okay, so your reading aloud is the very first task that you are going to do. And this is the card that you will get, and you are literally being tested on how you read the words aloud in Spanish. Okay, so this is the easiest part of the exam. It is nothing to be feared. Once you've done the read aloud, there will be 2 follow-up questions that you won't have been able to prepare in advance. And my top tips for this are, this is the lowest priority for the 14-minute prep time that you get before the exam. Okay, it's great if you do get time to prep it, and if you do, then you should be annotating your phonics and making sure that you're looking out for those tricky sounds, like in the first line, the J needs to be pronounced like an H, or a reminder that the V should be pronounced like a B, etc. Okay, but you do actually get 1 minute prep to read this aloud. So once you've gone from the prep room into the exam room with your teacher, you get a minute before the exam actually starts where you can practice reading this aloud. Okay, in that time it is important that you don't ask your teacher questions because they have to start the recording. So this part is being recorded and the exam board who mark it will be able to hear it, but it is your chance to just practice saying the words you need to say. Okay, and be really focused in this 1 minute, especially if you haven't had time in your prep time. And don't be afraid if you find a word in here that you don't really know how to say, go over it a few times so you feel more confident. For example, in this one, the word pertenecer might be quite difficult. It's not necessarily a word at GCSE you would have seen before. That is okay, by the way. You don't need to be able to understand what's happening in this text. You're being tested on your pronunciation. Okay, another tricky word there would be ruedas. So I would be practicing those a few times. Okay, the 2 unexpected questions that come at the end of this, okay, keep your answers as short and to the point as possible. I've done separate videos on what to do for the unexpected questions. We will do another one in Bootcamp, so look out for that. Note that the answer to those unexpected questions is not in the text. The questions are related to the theme of the text, which in this case is sports, but that's literally it. Okay, do not start reading the text to try and find the answer because it is not there. It comes from your brain. And if you, like I said, want some practice on answering the follow-up questions, then check out the videos I have done on that. Okay, reading aloud. This will be done, including the follow-up questions, within the first 2 minutes. And then we move on to the role play. Okay, so this is task number 2. And again, quite an easy task, I think. It's not something that should be feared. Okay, so this is the card that you will get. There are 5 prompts that you have to say what the prompt tells you to say. It is as simple as that. Okay, so say where you want to visit. I want to go to Madrid. Now, it is very important. Top tips in this. So first one, spend about 4 minutes on this in the prep time and make sure you number your answers. So your answer to question 1 should say number 1. Leave a line number 2 so that you know, teacher asks question 1, I read my answer for question 1. Okay, what I was going to say linked to what I was just saying about where you want to visit, read the scenario very carefully. So I have done this one before in a mock, and I think people must not have read that they are at a tourist office. If you're at a tourist office, you're going to be already in Spain. So do not say to me, where do you want to visit? I want to go to Spain. Okay, I took 1 mark off anybody who did that because it didn't make sense in the context of what this was, and the context is important. So make sure you have read the scenario properly, you understand where you are, because that impacts what you say. So for task 1, I'd be saying, I want to go to Madrid. Done. Perfect. If you can be more specific, I want to go to a museum. Great. Okay, but not Spain. Okay. Keep the answers for each prompt in as short a sentence as possible. Keep it simple, okay? I do not need you to show off here about everything you know how to say. Your goal is to answer the prompt in a sentence, okay? Rather than if you just write 1 word, then you will only get half marks, okay? That's top tip number 5. Each sentence, if we go back to top tip number 3, is worth a maximum of 2 marks, okay? If you only give 1 word, if all you can do is 1 word, say 1 word, because that gets you 1 mark, if it's correct, okay? Aim to always use a verb where you can, okay? Don't let not knowing the verb stop you from answering. Like I've said, 1 word answer will still get you 1 mark, but if you can use a verb, you know an appropriate verb to use, then do that. Do not do the classic thing of teenagers doing a conversation where somebody asks them a question and they just answer, what are you doing today? Shopping. Okay? I want to hear verbs. Okay? And when it comes to the questions, 4 and 5, keep them as simple as possible. Like if you've forgotten a question word, remember that in Spanish, a tone of voice can change a statement to a question. So like, there is a train for the first one. Ask a question about transport. There is a train. Is there a train or is there a station? Okay? Keep it simple. And I've touched on this already, but just remember that if you number your answers 1 to 5, then you do not need to understand a single word that comes out of the teacher's mouth. Obviously, great if you can, but in a speaking exam, there's going to be lots of high pressure, so you just need to focus on knowing the teacher has asked me question 1, I read my answer to question 1. The teacher has asked me question 2, I read my answer to question 2. Just make your life as easy as possible. Okay, once the role play is done, there are no follow-up questions. This is everything you need. This should take you, again, 1 to 2 minutes. Then we are moving on to the picture description. Okay, this is where we start to get into the real nitty-gritty of the exam. And you will have been given 2 pictures, and then the explanation underneath tells you what you need to cover in your picture description. Okay, so tips for this one is pretty important. So this is going to be the majority of your prep time. In your 14 minutes, I would be spending around 8 minutes on this, okay? If you need it, go to 10, but any more than 8 minutes that you spend in your picture description is coming off the read aloud. So I suppose that's your decision. Do I need to spend time? Is my time better spent prepping the read aloud, or is it better spent prepping the picture? Okay? However, you should have learned a structure for describing the picture before your exam, and you should be practicing this over and over and over. Again, I have done a video on this that literally tells you everything you need to know for this. There will be another one in Bootcamp. Your teacher, if it's not me, may have given you one already, but whatever it is, learn the structure, okay? That means that you're freeing yourself up a little bit in the prep time. If you know your structure inside out, you can improvise in the actual part of the exam, even if you haven't written stuff down. If you say, I'm only allowing myself 8 minutes for this, and then after 8 minutes, you're like, oh, I haven't finished saying everything I wanted to say. Well, if you have that in your head because you've practiced your structures so much, that doesn't matter. You can just improvise in the moment and add all the detail that you want. Okay, so that is so important. Okay, make sure this is for Edexcel. AQA has slightly different requirements for the picture task. I teach Edexcel. This video is very specific to Edexcel, but there are a lot of similarities if you are doing AQA, but the picture is not one of them. So for Edexcel, you must describe the people, their location, and their activity, okay? If you do not do all 3 of those things, you cannot get top marks for higher. Foundation, you get away actually with only 2 of the 3, and you're still okay, but we want to aim for all 3, okay? For the activity, you need to be able to use the present continuous tense, and I'm linking at the top of here. I've done a video on that as well, how to form the present continuous tense. Make sure you know it. It is where you use está or están for he is or they are. and then your verb ends in ando or yendo. Like I said, if you don't know that, you need to practice it. Check out that other video. And give as much detail as you possibly can, especially on higher. It is not easy to get full marks for this. You really have to give a lot of detail. And again, the video that I've done and the video we will do in bootcamp on this with the structures for describing the picture are exactly what you need to get those top marks. Okay, the 2 follow-up questions on this. So once you've described your picture, your teacher will ask you 2 follow-up questions. That is not the conversation starting. That is 2 follow-up questions specifically related to the topic of the picture. But the answer to those questions is not in the picture. So do not try and think that my teacher is asking me something about this picture. The answer is in the picture. It is not. Okay, it will be something like, if this is family and friends, what did you do last week with your family? Okay, what is your opinion on spending time with family and friends? Do not look for the answer in the picture. Okay, now moving on to the conversation. Once you get to this point in the exam, you are on the home straight. Okay, this is the final part. So you're so close. But this is also possibly the biggest part of the exam, because it is the thing you can prepare for the most. Okay, and it follows on straight after the follow-up questions from your picture description. It follows on to the conversation. Okay, and you will know what topic this is going to be on before the Easter holidays, right? So make sure that you have learned your answers to the key questions for this theme. Like, there is no excuse for that. You get a choice of 2 themes from the exam board. You get to choose one, and then you have, that's before Easter, you've got all of the Easter holidays. If you're at my school, your exam is 2 weeks after the Easter holidays. So you've got so much time to make sure that you know those key questions really, really well. Okay? Make sure that your answers, and your teacher should have helped you make sure this, that your answers include past, present, and future tenses. If you forget what you've learned, you gotta improvise, and you have to go into the exam believing in your own ability to improvise. And we will cover a video on this in bootcamp about what to do when your mind goes blank. But the worst thing you can do if you have forgotten what to say is like recall every 3rd word of what you learned, and then it makes absolutely no sense. Okay, if you're in a position where you think, I've forgotten this, you just are going to have to believe in your ability to make something up on the spot, which, if you've got to this point in GCSE Spanish, you are absolutely capable of doing. Okay, you must expect unexpected questions throughout this conversation. Your teacher will have like a set of key questions that you've learned, but your teacher cannot let this be the only part of the conversation. That forms the base of the conversation, but follow-up unexpected questions will be based on something you've said. They'll ask you for more detail. Okay, do not panic, do not freeze when this happens. You should have an idea of what this feels like from mocks that you have done. Expect that they will exist. Again, I'm going to do a video on this later at bootcamp as well, on how you could be like at least mentally prepared for the unexpected questions. But just don't panic when you get them. Make sure you are familiar with question words in Spanish, like we said for the role play. Okay, unexpected questions require you to understand the question in Spanish to be able to answer it. So you must know question words and what they mean, because without that, you're really going to struggle to translate the question. Okay, and if you can, this is just a bonus. You don't have to, but you can ask your teacher a question. Or a couple of questions. Like, we don't want that to take up a lot of the time, but it's nice for a little bit of interaction, so it's more of a conversation and less of an interrogation. Okay, and I'd say that is something to think about if you're like very confident, you're aiming for like an 8 or a 9, you really want to sort of stand out a little bit from the crowd. Your teacher will answer it quickly and then move on, so that the focus of the conversation is on you, but it just adds a nice element of interaction to your conversation. Okay, so my revision tips. That is, I've now told you everything, what the exam is going to look like, everything you need to be thinking of for each of the steps. Now my revision tips. And these are my top 4 revision tips in order of priority. Okay, so 1 is learn your key questions. There is no video I can make that will make you learn your key questions. That is something you have to do on your own. Start now. Okay, well, start as soon as you've chosen your topic. Do it little and often. Okay, and I also have a video on how to learn them. So I'll link that at the top right now, and you can check that out. Okay, then the second most important thing you can do is join Bootcamp every Tuesday. Every Tuesday you're going to get one of these videos, and every Tuesday you can do a really solid 20 to 30 minutes of prep for your speaking exam, which means that when it comes around, you won't even be stressed because you'll just feel so well prepared. Okay, then know your structures for describing a picture and practice them a lot. And if you're somebody who struggles to get motivated on your own, use my video. If you're doing part 2, which is Bootcamp, then this will be a natural part of that and you will do it anyway. And 4, make sure you know question words in Spanish and what they mean in English. If you do those 4 things, there is nothing stopping you in the exam. I guarantee it will go as well as it possibly could. So, on that note, I know that you are if you've made it to the end of this video, it's because you really want your speaking exam to go well. So I will see you same place next week, Tuesday, for Bootcamp video number 2. And we are going to take a more detailed look in that video at the read aloud and think about how to prepare it, do some practice tasks, and really just everything that you could possibly want in order to be prepared for the read aloud. Hasta la próxima semana.